what's business money and what's personal money? They're very different. What's the money doing? How's the money moving for us? And what do we need it to do? And what do we want it to do? There's a lot of freedom when you start to see how your money can work for you. And when you see that you're making some powerful choices. And there's also empowerment in taking chances on yourself, know what is a hard no for you and know what is a hard yes for you. And I feel like those conversations with women are different than we have in rooms that are filled with men.
Have men there. Welcome to the Knowing Podcast. My name is Christene Marie. Each interview, each guest that comes here on the podcast is conducted Stephen King style, which means that I get to know them right along with you. There's no preset agenda. There's actually no real introduction of each guest. And the reason for this is that we withhold judgment. We withhold any kind of bias so that not only do we get to know them and remain curious about their story and what they have to offer us, but also we remain curious about ourselves. And by way of this podcast, we come to know not only our businesses, not only our relationships, but ultimately we come to know ourselves. Enjoy. Tamar Hermes, I am so happy to see you.
I am always delighted to see you.
We are here in Austin, and you just came rolling in looking like a queen. And for those of you who cannot see Tamar, she is wearing a beautiful green velvet dress with a gold and green necktie with all of the rings. So I'm inspired. I'm going to Italy in a couple of weeks, and I'm like, maybe I'll dress like you while I'm there.
All the things.
All the things. Tamar, so right before we pressed record, we were talking about, honestly, kind of the flow of this conversation and do we feel led in a particular way? And one of the things that I really would love to gift our listeners is the topic of knowing financials. We talk a lot on this podcast about knowing self, knowing business, knowing relationships, and we haven't talked too much about financials. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, it's such a personal topic for a lot of people. Two, there's not many people that are very good with financials. And then three, I think that there's a barrier to trust the person and then take advice. And within an hour-long conversation, a half-hour conversation, it's hard to establish the trust and thus be able to really receive. So with that, we're going to take a go at this and really give the listeners a gift. We've talked about a couple of things that you'll do towards the end, which is just so generous of you. And I'm so excited for this. So all that to say, Tamar Hermes, would you please introduce yourself for the listeners and viewers in the back who don't know who you are?
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tamar Hermes. I live here in Austin, Texas, in a wonderful home with my husband and my little terrier because my children have all left the house. They're all grown. They're all grown. I am what we call an open nester, never an empty nester. And I spend my days figuring out how to support women growing wealth because it is a mission that is near and dear to my heart. It's one that I feel is at a lot of the source of how we walk through the world, how we feel about money, and how we connect with our value. Because money in our culture equals value. And now it's not all our value, obviously. It's not necessarily true that it is really value, although it is perceived. And there is something to it, for sure. So I feel that it's a worthy mission because I feel that when women are empowered with money, they can give more, they can be more of themselves, they can feel safer in the world, they can speak their truth more, they have more choices, and it just makes life better.
Yeah, I know that one of the things that I'm thinking about when and if the time comes for me to get married and hopefully have children one day, it might be a while, but that's okay. How is freedom from kind of the cooking and cleaning so that I can continue with my mission, what I feel called to, and be so present with my children and husband? That's so much powered by money. Having the freedom to ultimately live the life you want to live. A lot of that is predicated in the financial freedom that money does render us. So I think you nail it.
100%. And it's also a conversation that can be had around money, which is how much money do we actually need and want, and what are our priorities? So when I was raising my children, I wasn't as vocal about women growing wealth and spending all my time on this mission. I was nurturing my children, taking care of my family, and running businesses that were bringing in the income that I needed and wanted for the lifestyle that I had. But it wasn't necessarily the biggest rock. It wasn't the biggest priority for me at that time. And I think we ebb and flow in life in terms of seasons and what we are inclined to, although the overarching theme of having resource is one that stays with us throughout our life in some capacity.
What a beautiful reminder about the seasonality of our focus and priorities. And seasons can be weeks. It doesn't need to be these 10 years. It can literally be my focus for this week or this month or this quarter is this. And maybe it is a 10-year season, but I think that there's so much freedom in that. And if we're being led from within and ultimately knowing what you said, what we need, what we want, and our priorities, each one is very different. There's a big difference between what we need versus what we want. And sometimes the differentiation thereof and also the lack of clarity can really confuse us and trip us up, and then knowing what our priorities are. Where have you and how have you guided women in being able to identify what those are?
I think that it starts with conversations. And I think that's one of the things that I found was missing with a lot of the investment groups that I was involved in that were heavily male dominated. And I think that women need conversation, and we need to talk things through, and we need to really get to a point where we're really at the core of what's in our hearts before we make investment choices or before we make bold moves. And investments, they are not small ventures. Generally, we are spending a fair amount of money. It's the same thing as being a business owner. When we have to put money into the business because we want the business to grow in a certain way, it's the same kind of icky feeling or excited feeling we get in our stomachs knowing that we're building something great. And investments are something for the future. So that when I work with women, we dive in not only into strategy and opportunities and ideas and what works and risk tolerance, but also looking at the conversation. What do you really want? What do you really need? And I wanted to add something that just occurred to me when we were talking about the seasons, and you were saying we can look at quarterly, we can look at years, 10 years, and different marks. And I was thinking that, seasons can even be a few minutes. It can even be just where we just take a couple breaths inside and we look at what is it that's true for us? And do we want to move forward with a decision or not? And honoring that, because I feel like in the world of wealth and money, there's so many guys that tend to move more quickly. And I have a lot of male partners. I think guys are great. And I also think they function in a different way at times in terms of the way that they make decisions. And I think sometimes when we drop in a little bit more, we can tap into more of what we really need.
Completely agree. And you say drop in more. So you said take a pause and take some deep breaths. What else does it look like for you to drop in? And when you say drop in, I believe I know what you mean. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because that's so critical, that whole concept that you touched on it beautifully. But I'd love to elaborate on it a bit more because I don't know if everyone will know what you mean.
Absolutely. So what it means to me when I say drop in, it means to get quiet and turn off all the stimulations that we have in the world and sit in a garden or even in your bedroom by yourself and to take a few deep breaths with your eyes closed and see yourself with love.
Oh.
to see yourself with love and acceptance and grace for all the things you've done and all the things you haven't done and all the things that you wish you would have done and all the things you still want to do, and giving yourself that space so that you can really feel into where it is that you really want to go next with honor. And a lot of that does have to do with our connection with money ultimately, too, because let's face it, financial decisions and money decisions, they can get extremely stressful. And especially right now in the time we're living in, it's more than ever easy to get knocked off of your balance. And so it's more than ever important to come back to yourself in that way.
That's so beautiful. I really love what you said. It's not just about sitting and being quiet. It's looking at yourself with love. And not just on the things that you have done, but also the things that you haven't done, the things that you want to do, and perhaps things you failed at. Season 1 of the Knowing Podcast, episode 1, we featured Kamal Ravikant, and he wrote a book about just that. And it's about loving self, and really actually it's his journey of self-love. And he's a former military ops guy, and tough dude, right? He's not some hippie who, frankly, I think we typically attribute those kind of love self messages to that type of persona. And there's something about what you said that's really, really critical, because either we close our eyes and are blind to what we don't like, or we just love it all and don't ever try to change. There's very much a black and white type of approach when it comes to self-love. And so how do you encourage people to get to the point, like the progression of the mental capability to even be able, and emotional capability, to be able to look at everything, like spread your entire life, all of you, out on the table and love it?
I think a lot of it comes from being able to also understand finance. So a lot of times when we're beating ourselves up or feeling bad about something, it's because we don't understand it or we didn't understand it.
What a good point.
So talk about the Knowing Podcast, right? Sometimes we need to learn. Yes. And when we have knowledge, it's power. Right. And so sometimes part of the nurturing isn't so much going in and just praying and praying and praying. It's also looking at the numbers, looking at, okay, where are we at? What can we do? And all of a sudden, when we feel more empowered, a transformation can occur, because we realize, okay, I'm not stuck. I'm not a failure. A lot of people have made these mistakes. This is part of life. If I want to live a big life, I'm not going to just walk straight up the mountain.
Right. Okay, so you mentioned earlier, can you talk a little bit about what you're actually about to launch it, but by the time this comes out, it's already going to be an active community. Can you talk through that a little bit?
Absolutely. So I am creating the Women Growing Wealth Investor Mastermind. And what that is an opportunity for women to make, invest, and keep more money. I like to say the woman's way. And so I like to tap into some of the pieces that are indicative of what it means to be a woman. And we don't lean into a holistic approach per se, but we're just aware. We're aware that we're women. We're aware that there are certain sensitivities. We are aware that we're walking and navigating a path that is dominated by males. And we're not exclusive to not looking at investment opportunities from men. Like I said, I have a lot of male partners, but the conversations that we have, the dialogue we have, the fears we might have around losing money, around being able to understand the math, around being able to be patient and trust time, knowing that many investments take time. So right now we have a time where a lot of people are very nervous because their stock market has gone down and their funds are diminished. And for me, I am not happy when that happens. And yet I understand that that is part of the way economics go.
Yeah.
We have ups, we have downs, and then we have ups again.
Yeah.
And so part of this is being able to be in these conversations so that we can feel confident, so we can be powerful in our choices. I had a client today tell me, oh man, I put money in Bitcoin when it was at 98, and I'm concerned now because I feel that I bought at the tippy top.
Yes.
And when we talked about it, she realized this is probably not the end of Bitcoin. This is not cryptocurrency advice, although I don't believe that this is the end of Bitcoin. And I believe we'll likely see it rebounding and then some.
Well, and that's what already has happened. That's what the data shows.
Over time. Yes, absolutely. And so we're really nurturing both sides in this group. We're getting investment opportunities into the group with experts from my circles, and vetted deals and tax strategies, and also working on financial plans and visions and futuring and figuring out where we want to be, where we want to go, what the returns look like, how comfortable we are, what do we really need, what do we really want, all the questions, all the things, are we having more kids soon? Are we not having kids soon? And what does that look like? And living with a freedom and joy and an exuberance about how money can flow with us, as opposed to feeling that money's the enemy.
That's so good. Okay, so a couple things. I love everything you just said. I'm so excited for your group. I had the privilege of speaking at one of your events and also being a fly on the wall. Tamar, you bring in such incredible leaders alongside you. I think that's something that is very remarkable about you, is that you're not selfish with the stage. You really do bring in dynamic speakers and leaders, and you really nurture these women, and each one is incredibly powerful. One of the women was buying a castle in, I think, Italy for her whiskey business.
No big thing.
Not nothing but a thing. So it was, love what you're doing, and it's so important. I did not grow up with much awareness about, we had our little Tootsie Roll piggy banks, and we gave 25 cents of our weekly dollar allowance to God, 25 cents to savings, 25 cents for spending, and 25 cents for everyone else. So that's about the money education I got growing up. It was sweet and also very illiterate when it comes to money. You commented to me, while we were talking about this conversation, you said, don't tell me that you women don't have 5 minutes in your day to look at your money. And that really stood out to me, because that's usually my biggest hurdle to looking at my bank statement, getting into the habit of looking. I think it's Alex Hermes, before he had anything, every morning he would wake up and check all of his accounts. And just to get into the habit and train his mind. And then that also impacts the mindset. What kind of mindset are you bringing into this? So I want to talk about time, and I want to talk about mindset. So whichever one you want to go first with, have at it, because I think both of those are so, so, so critical. And so many times we're getting in our own way when it comes to money and wealth in general.
Right. Okay. So we're going to talk about time first.
Okay.
Let's talk about time. And that's a big one. And I also want to just reflect that, yes, there was a client that was building a castle, although not everybody was building a castle, I want to say, because I don't want anyone to think like, oh my gosh, I have to be building a castle.
What a good point. Yes. There were some women who, what was it? I think one was a stay-at-home mom, and she kind of did some of it on the side. And so, yes, there was a big spectrum. I was impressed with the castle lady.
Yes. And the point is, like, everybody's getting resources and building them, and has some resource in my group for sure, but not everybody's building a castle.
Yes.
Although very fun.
Touche.
Let's talk about time. Time is a big one, especially for women that are ambitious and have businesses and have families and are curious. There's always more things coming in.
Yes.
So I think that with money, it is important to stay connected to it. Although I certainly don't think that you need to look at it every single day. I'm sure early on, Alex Hermes probably had more time than he does now.
Yes.
I'm sure he has many people that do it now in many accounts. But I do think that it is important to spend at least twice a month where you sit down and you recalibrate. It's important, especially in times like this where money is fluctuating and investments are fluctuating, and some businesses are doing incredibly well and some are not doing as well. And it's that ebb and flow.
Right.
And what it does when we sit down with our finances and we look at how much money is actually coming in and what we can do with opportunities and where the opportunities are, is it also gives us a really nice snapshot, because a lot of times what happens is the market goes down and there's probably a lot of people running around saying, I'm completely broke. The market just crashed. And the truth is they're really not broke. And what kind of message is that to the universe, to say that they're broke because the market went down? The truth is the market went down. It's showing lower returns, and they can be looking at maybe what it was like 5 years ago. How much did they actually make? Like maybe they put in $50,000 and now it's worth 150 and now it's worth 125.
Right.
So they still made 75. So are they being kind to themselves, and are they really looking at the numbers fairly? Because to think that numbers are always just going to go up, go up, go up isn't healthy for any one of us. And so time, I think that we just, what I like to do is I create in my wealth activation session, I train women to kind of set up a nice little time for themselves to have a little music playlist and make a cup of tea and sit down and look at their finances and make it kind of a fun time. And so they don't end up dreading it if that starts to come in. And part of it is just this fear, which a lot of times is not real, because like I said, there may be disillusioned markers. Now, granted, you may be in a financial stress position. And if you are, then it's also an empowering time to look at it and say, okay, what opportunities are there? What can I do? Because how many millionaires, billionaires do we know, investors that have been with their back against a wall and figured out from that place where the opportunities are? We look at the last big crash and we got Airbnb and Uber and all these things that really revolutionized our world. They really revolutionized our world. And now we can see that it was only through those times that kind of creation came in.
And how much have we benefited, not just as the consumer, but also from the employee perspective? I love talking to my Uber drivers. I mean, they have their own business. They're entrepreneurs. They have their own schedule. They manage their own, they manage their own financial income streams, right? They can work more and make more money. Like, they really have a lot of power. Man, it's amazing. And even the homeowner being able to utilize Airbnb. So I love those two examples, because what it does is it does reshape from fear to opportunity. And then the other thing that you said that I really, really love is the creation of a space that is delightful and enjoyable to then go and kind of face your money. So can you walk us through and I know that you have this is something that you do with people, which I highly recommend that we start off with you, rather than, I mean, we can do it on our own, right? But I know for me and many other entrepreneurs and even moms, like, moms don't have time. Already they're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do it all? You know? So I know that for me as the entrepreneur, all the way to the mothers, there's just so many of us in between who are doing both. God bless them. And so how in the world do we find time? So I would highly recommend that we do it with you. And I'd love to be able to do that with you, Tamar, because I know that we need it. So let's say that we're going to do this with you. What does that process look like? Like, what are you having us pull up on our end when it comes to that 15, 20 minutes that we set aside twice monthly? What are we looking at?
So what I really want you to look at is really all the pieces that you have going on with money. And one of the distinctions that I think is really important that doesn't come into play a lot with business owners that are very busy is what's business money and what's personal money. They're very different. And a lot of times we have accounting teams for businesses, whereas our personal kind of gets pushed to the side because we might not have, we don't feel that it's as important. And so I like to lean more into the personal side. Now, granted, your company's likely paying you, so you have your money on that side. But we also, there's a bunch of different buckets. So I like to just touch on the different buckets, but we lean into personal, retirement, expenses, things like that are really important to look at. And from there, we really are looking at what's the money doing? How's the money moving for us? And what do we need it to do? And what do we want it to do? And then from there, what opportunities suit us? And let's say you have a retirement account and it's sitting making 4%. You might be able to make more on that. You actually definitely could make more on that. And you also want to do it strategically and in the right investments. So you need to set that up as a self-directed account. And there are certain steps you need to take. And then you need to make sure that you find the right investment opportunities where you could target 10% plus returns annualized. So those are the kinds of things we're looking at. Like, okay, where do we want to put the gas on and where do we not want to put the gas on? And then we implement strategy, we implement investment, we implement also sometimes there might be some pieces where, okay, I'm taking this much salary in my business, but maybe I need distributions or maybe I need certain other things that I'm not looking at. How are we dancing between the business? Depends, of course, on how big the company is, because sometimes a company gets very large and then that really operates as a very separate entity.
Right. So on the personal side, I cannot tell you how almost every single time I sit down and look at my credit card statement, I'm like, what is that? Like, and I got charged 3 years ago and I was like a year later that I noticed it, but Hilton charged me for 3 nights that I never, and then another like Marriott never gave me the refund for the deposit. All those little things that it's like you realize it so long after, and maybe you don't even realize it. That was the other thing that really stood out to me. So in us doing this bi-monthly, you're catching things right away. And how do you have them actually analyze their personal? What does that look like?
Well, when you're analyzing your personal, you're really more taking just a brief accounting. You're not a bookkeeper. You could even have a bookkeeper like I do that actually does my P&Ls on personal, just so I can track it and know
I love
what does that look like. You just put it in QuickBooks and have someone check it. And then that way, okay, I'm spending this much on this. I'm spending this much on that.
Can you break that down? I don't know if everyone will know what a P&L is.
Yeah. So that's a profit and loss statement.
Okay.
And that is basically just essentially telling you how much money did you put in and how much money did you take out. That's essentially what it is.
And in what category. That's what I love, because the categorization of things, it's radical responsibility. And I recently changed my bookkeepers, and there's an element of accountability of knowing that I have to send all my receipts in, whereas with my former bookkeeper, we didn't have a great system like that. So honestly, I was at lunch the other day and I was like, you know what? I actually don't need to get that whatever extra thing added onto the bill, because I'm like, I feel a little guilty. Even though it's my money, my business, I could do that. And at the same time, that element of accountability is really, really helpful. And even when I just said my money, is it even? There's something about the giving and exchanging, like money that comes in and money that goes out for us. Like, man, thinking of it as if we're given our money to make impact and to fulfill on our calling in our life, then is this money truly mine? And if I hold on tightly to it, there's something about being a good steward.
Yes. And it has a lot to do too with the old adage that talks about, if your life's not working for you, if things aren't working for you, if money's not coming to you, how much are you thinking about yourself versus how much are you thinking about other people? And that has to do with the scarcity that a lot of women that didn't grow up with money have, and that stays with us for a long time. It has to be hard. We have to struggle. Even a lot of times I still feel it. My clients all have a version of it, of feeling like, oh God, I want to get out of this feeling that somehow I'm still in that state of struggle, even when there's plenty of money in the account. And even just working on that, just even being just in community, just I feel like really lightens the load for so many women, because it's important for us to have a space, again, where we can just honor ourselves and where we can let that go and feel safe.
Yes.
And realize, okay, I'm really safe. I'm really safe. And I have other women here telling me that, you know, that should, being my witness.
Yes. Right. Right. I love that. So some themes that I've heard: being kind to yourself, making a beautiful space for when you go into the discomfort of looking at your finances, turning your personal into a P&L. And there's easy enough ways to do it for ourselves. Can you talk a little bit about what we were discussing that you were going to offer us? Because I think that that's kind of the perfect segue.
Oh, yes. So right now for a time, obviously, when you're listening to this podcast, anytime you listen to this podcast, since it's on right now, I'm offering a one-on-one session. And at a special rate of $250. And what I'll do is I will do what I call a wealth activation session with you, where I will leave you with a financial plan PDF and your 3 next wealth moves. Obviously, you're not going to get an in-depth science of where to invest next, but I want women to start seeing what's possible, and just to even create a couple of ahas are generally worth quite a bit of money, of return ROI for them. So I'm certainly a lot more than $250.
100%. Well, and actually, listeners, she said she was going to give it to us for free, and I was like, no, you should charge for that. And so she agreed to charge, because I was just in another podcast, I was chatting with someone. When you charge, I feel more accountable since I'm giving you money. There's an exchange happening rather than you giving me something for free. I know the human nature of the free exchange of something that's frankly so valuable, and we won't take it as seriously. So thank you for charging us and forcing the accountability, because this is so important, Tamar. This is so important. You know, it really allows, in terms of the outcome of having your money under control and having it work for you. I mean, I'm sure you have copious stories of people whose lives have just changed dramatically because of the financial freedom and wealth that they've garnered by working with you.
There's a lot of freedom when you start to see how your money can work for you, and when you see that you're making some powerful choices. And there's also empowerment in taking chances on yourself as far as investing, because it is not always a win.
Yeah.
And so we need to be as prudent as we can and weigh into the checks and balances of what it is and what we're envisioning.
Yeah.
And all of it really equates to a much more powerful positioning. I've seen one of the stories that I like the most with a couple clients actually, is that they were earning a certain amount. They were earning a great amount of money working on their own, but I kept saying, look, you know, if you were a business owner, you would have the benefits of being able to break the ceiling and make as much as you want. And it was pretty frightening to them to think of that. And 3 recently have moved into starting their own companies. And I know that a lot of that had to do with the work that they did with me to give them that ongoing support, and to get them to that next level. And now they're in it to win it. So it's really great.
Wow.
Yeah. And then of course that 1 hour session that we talked about is a perfect segue into, okay, now that you see that there's opportunities, what would it look like to be part of a community, to have these investment opportunities brought to you, and be able to discuss them with other women, and be able to look at questions that you have together in a community of like-minded women.
Tamar, when I hear investment, I just have it ingrained in me. Okay, I need like 100,000, because I was looking at a financial opportunity and they were like, that was the minimum. So what is realistic for listeners? Like, they need to have this much in their bank to be able to be a good fit for you.
Yes, that's a great question. So I work with accredited investors, which means that they're making at least $200,000 a year or have $1 million net worth, which could also mean this is a great thing too for you to understand about your money and your wealth is most women don't really know how much money they have. They don't really understand what a net worth is. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I have $1 million company." Well, I don't look at my company in as much as I look at my net worth, because my net worth is like, what if my company went away? How much money do I have?
Yes.
That is your net. When you catch it in the net,
yeah.
How much is there? How much can you live with, and live on? And how much is actually in that bucket? And so that when we talk about $1 million net worth, I also say a lot of my clients, maybe if they own a property and they have equity in that property, meaning that they bought it for $400,000, but now it's worth $1 million. So that's $600,000. So to me, that is part of your net worth, because if you sold that property, you would get that money. So that is part of your net. That is in your basket. Good. So that is an important distinction, that women, regardless of anything you do, understand really what your numbers look like. And then the second thing is how much you need to invest. So yes, there are certain standards where there will be higher minimums. Yeah. And a lot of the deals that I bring in we can either pool resource together so that we can create our own LLC where you can pull that together so that it isn't as much, but preferably to keep your money in your own basket, because it gets more. That's another layer to share the LLCs, is to say at least 25K, I think is a good number. Okay. And I think I also like to say that even with some of my community members, when they might not be in a place where they necessarily want to be investing in deals right now because they're putting money into their business or they have other priorities, and they still want to be in the conversation to learn, okay, when an investment opportunity comes along, I know this is a no, or I know this is a yes. I wish I would have had that. I thought that I was paying for that education a few years back, and I ended up in a group where I actually got a lot of education, and I also got my wallet handed to me empty. So you have to be careful about the questions that you ask, and know what is a hard no for you and know what is a hard yes for you. And I feel like those conversations with women are different than we have in rooms that are filled with men.
Have men there. Tamar, thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful. I'm so excited for people to learn and keep learning from you, because this is for a lot of people a big, scary black room, and it's dark and they don't really know where the light switch is. You know what I mean? So I'm really grateful for your graciousness in talking about loving ourselves as kind of a pre-qualifier in order to then do the work of knowing your finances. So I'm grateful for your time. Any last words to our guests if they're really getting started, or to our listeners rather?
Yes, I just want to say that it is so beneficial for your life to just decide that you want to love money instead of the other way around. It's just a life can be a lot easier when you allow it to flow to you. And everyone has that capability. Everyone has that capability. And I believe that from the bottom of my heart, especially women, that we serve in this world and we bring so much value. Right. And if we allow that to come in, we will be held, and we can do so much with that resource. Yeah. So I just invite you to, when you feel like you're in the dark and maybe you can't find that light switch, to just know that light switch is there. And so just turn it on. Just turn it on. You can find it.
Yeah. I love that. And turning it on so often is going to people like you. So thank you for being a resource. Thank you for the gift of this one-to-one with you. I'm so excited and so grateful. So
thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode on the Knowing Podcast. Here's the thing. While you and I can pursue therapy, we can pursue masterminds, network opportunities, there's a lot of external opportunities for us to further engage and propel our journey of knowing self, knowing our relationships, and knowing our business. But what I hope for you is that beyond all the external, that you take the questions asked during this conversation, any revelations that you garnered through listening, that you take it and you actually apply it and go inward, that you take time this next week to do some self-reflection, to get to know yourself through your own efforts, because you are worthy of knowing. I'll see you next week.